think about them and see what they say to you before you come and hear what I have to say about them. So today I'm reading to you the parable, I think it's the first parable actually of Jesus in Matthew, which is 13 verses 1 through 9. That same day Jesus went out to the houses and sat beside the sea. And great crowds gathered about him, so that he got into a boat and sat there. And the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, A sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky grounds, where they had not much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil, but when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since there was no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell among good soil, and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear. May God bless to us some understanding of this reading today. Well, first off, I want to tell you that I forgive you. Each and every one of you, I forgive you. Now, by now you're wondering, what did we do? Did the congregation do something? Did the board do something? Why would Bruce want to forgive us? But you see, that's not the point of forgiveness. Forgiveness shouldn't be, well, I forgive George because of what George did, but Sue I'm really angry at, and I'm going to maintain my anger with Sue. Matter of fact, forgiveness should be an integral part of your life. It should be a state of who you are as a human being. It's your personality, the very essence of who you ought to be if you say, I'm a believer of Jesus Christ. In a sense, what goes around comes around. You all, no matter what you've done, I know no matter what I've done, I go to my room and I say, oh God, please, don't hold this against me. Forgive me. But then I say the Lord's Prayer, and I say, forgive me as I forgive those who sin against me, but I don't want to forgive those. So you see, what goes around comes around. Forgiveness should be a state of who we are. I don't know if you read the article in the paper 2 or 3 months at most. Remember reading, I think it was 2 years ago, of a guy, he drove down this dirt road to a school out in the middle of nowhere, took a bunch of kids hostage, young kids, and shot several others. They interviewed those parents now that the trial was on. I don't remember the results of the trial. But they all forgave. I mean, they truly, totally forgave this person. They didn't want his punishment to be based on some sort of vengeance. But how can we help him as a society to be a better person? And the reporter asked, how can you forgive that kind of thing? And they told him, we're Quakers. And that's our personality. We don't judge. We forgive. That is the very core of who we are. And that's the way Christ calls all of us to be. But often people confuse forgiveness with that of letting people walk on them. We're not called to let people walk on us and abuse us. We're just called to forgive them. Henry was the middle of 3 children. His older brother was a prince who could do no wrong in his mother's eyes. And his younger sister was a princess who was adored. And so Henry, no matter how hard he tried, and he always wanted to please, if he did really good, he was a show-off. If he didn't get A+, what was wrong with him? He was lazy. And as he grew up, of course, his siblings began to follow that same route. Let's pick on Henry. And Henry, as a young adult, when he would go home for Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving, when he came back to his own place and his own family, he was angry, he was depressed, he felt guilty, he felt shame, and he didn't know what to do with himself. And finally his psychologist said, Henry, you need to stop going to your family where they will constantly abuse you. So he did a lot of prayer and he thought about it. And what he realized, yes, it's okay not to go, but I can't hold a grudge. I have to forgive. But forgiving doesn't mean I'm going to continue to attend family functions and be brutalized. I think of it almost as if a friend invites you over for supper. He has a dog that bites you, and he doesn't do anything with the dog. You go over another day, the dog bites you, and he doesn't do anything with the dog. You don't need to keep going back to that friend. That would be crazy to allow yourself to be abused and punished like that. But you don't need to become vengeful and want the dog put down and your friend sued. It's like that with our mental and emotional being as well. We don't need to allow ourselves to be emotionally abused. We just shouldn't hold a grudge. To forgive someone does not mean you need to continue to associate with them. It does mean that you need to avoid responding through vengeance, through anger, and trying to get other people against them and hurt them. Forgiveness should simply be your way of life. Forgiveness should be a part of your heart and who you are. So Christ's teachings are an invitation to a way of life. That's what we need to understand. Christ's teachings are an invitation to a way of life for you. Your way of life might be different than my way of life, even though we're following the same teachings. They are directions to help people become whole within themselves. It is an invitation to discover an inner peace that will carry you through your whole life, regardless of what storms you might encounter. For me, the best word I can come up with to describe all of that is integrity. For in truth, a content person, the most content people in this world, are those who have a deep, spiritual, committed integrity. To have integrity means you have instilled principles, and you have established principles within yourself which you are never prepared to abandon, regardless of the temptations and situations. According to Christ, sometimes that's going to get you in a lot of trouble. People will condemn you, and they will criticize you as they have condemned and criticized Him for staying strong in the Lord. But at least you'll have an inner peace. When you have integrity of character, you do not need to go through life constantly trying to prove to others who you are. Sociologists have shown that the majority of individuals, Christian or not, have a need to be part of an organism in order to feel good about themselves. In other words, it is only through an association with some sort of club or organization that they get to develop this healthy sense of self-identification. A sense that is often truly not so healthy. This organism might be that of a large family, regardless of whether or not that family is a functional or an extraordinarily dysfunctional family. It can be a bowling team, a fan club of the Blue Jays, or whatever. People have a need to belong. That's who we are as human creatures. It can be a street gang. This is why so many young people join street gangs. They haven't got a sense of self-identity, of integrity. So when they belong to this gang, they start to feel like they have a belonging, and this gang gives them an identity, and if the gang leads them astray, they go wherever they have to go. Drugs, booze, fighting, whatever, because they have a need to belong. Does that mean wanting to belong is a bad thing? Of course not. All like-minded people, as like-minded people, we like to find and hang around other like-minded people. And that's how clubs and organizations get started. Belonging to a club only becomes a problem when you are dependent on that club or organization to give you a sense of self-worth. When it's the club that gives you a sense of self-worth, that's a problem. It is a problem when the club establishes your identity rather than a place for you to go and express and share who you already are with others. Therefore, the basis of Christ's teachings is to help the listener to establish a self-identity they can be proud of and stand firm on. Those who are one in Christ do not need others or belong to an organization to feel affirmed in their self-value. They know they're valued because Christ loves them for who they are. When you are committed to Christ and have faith in His teachings, you do not need to follow the crowd or be part of a particular group to establish your identity. You already have your identity. Matter of fact, belonging to Christ is so important that that is your identity. So the reason so many people run afoul in life is because they have not yet established a deep sense of self, of personal identity. They are never sure of who they are, and therefore are easily led astray. A used car salesman starts a job and he says, I'm going to be one of the most honest people in town. But he finds all his colleagues are making twice as much money by not quite telling the truth and selling junk and this and that. And so before long he wants to be catching up. And so he surrenders his integrity and does what it takes to get his car sold. He didn't have that deep-rooted faith in Christ to get him a fare. Someone gets married and they plan to have this person all their life, but they're going through life and they're tempted by someone at work to get involved in an affair, and next thing they know they've let go of what they thought they believed and surrendered to an affair. Stealing, crime, all that comes when you don't have that deep-rooted integrity that says, no, I will not cross this line. So how does this fit in with Christ's parable of the seeds? The truth is that your integrity, your demeanor, who you are, at the very